Love that serene music. So, well, good morning and welcome to all of you here in the sanctuary and all of you joining us online. We're grateful and love that you've decided to spend your morning with us. So, thank you. My name is Chris Camper and I'll be the platform assistant today. Reverend Luz and Joe have moved this week, so Joe's here, and Reverend Luz is taking some self-care time. So we're excited to welcome our guest speaker, Stephen Poplin. And Stephen is a lifelong seeker, traveler, and guide on the path of awakening. He's also a philosopher, a hypnotherapist, and an eternal student of the human spirit. And Stephen is here today to remind us that we all have choices and voices. And what do we stand for and why?
And it's so nice to be here again. Nice to see your smiling faces. I'll be talking about choices and voices. First of all, welcome June. Yay. It is Gemini time. The twins, dualities, polarities, contrasts. Any Geminis here? Okay, several of you are guilty. Are the voices inside my head bothering you? Let's see if we can identify some of these voices. Here on my two shoulders are Mr. Do Be and Mr. Don't Be. Sometimes they look like a little angel on one side and then a little devil on the other. Does anyone hear those voices? One is particularly naughty. Can you guess which one? I have recently confronted duality personally. Many of you know that I had some surgery, actually 3 surgeries on my eye in the last couple of months. And that really threw me off for a while, but it made me also consider symbolically, what am I not seeing? What need I revision or look at anew? I have to reevaluate maybe my general vision. Well, that quest is still in flux, but I am seeing better. I see all 12 of you here today. Welcome. By the way, I am left-eyed. I learned that while I was in the military. And then I earned a sharpshooter badge because of identifying that. Do you know which is your dominant eye? How many know that? Not that many. Let's find out right now. So we can do this very easily. You'll be looking at one particular point here behind me, any one small thing. And then with your hands, make a small little hole like that, putting your hands in front of you, and then looking at that particular thing far away. Elbows straight, get those arms out, further out. Find that point, both eyes open, then close your right eye. That image probably disappeared for some of you. Then close your left eye, and that image should show up. Huh? Left eye or right eye. You see that now? Make sure that your arms are straight far ahead of you, not like this. Okay, yeah, like further out. Yeah, then you can just see. Yeah. Both eyes open, and then you'll just notice that one disappears, and that will show which is your dominant eye. The one that stays on the object is your dominant eye. That's the one that was actually focusing. And so then we have a dominant left eye, which is connected to the right brain, and that represents then the intuitive, mystical, magical, poetic And then the right eye more connected to analytical, understanding, facts, figures, and things like that. So learning a little bit more about yourself. So let me see. We are presently being bombarded with either or options today. Right, wrong, good, bad, left, right. We're faced with such choices or divisions daily. Allow me to weave some stories and some characters connected to June 1st. And I will try not to lie, but to tell you the truth as best as I can. On this date in 1855, June 1st, the American adventurer William Walker conquers Nicaragua. What? Say what? I filed this under crazy notions and mental illness news. In May of that year, Walker and a group of mercenaries sail from San Francisco to conquer a country in Central America. In February 1854, the year before, Walker was in Mexico fighting the Mexicans with that same idea. But he was stopped by the army there. Walker, a well-educated narcissist and filibuster, wanted to set himself up as a president of a Central American pro-U.S. colony promoting slavery. And slavery was abolished, by the way, in those countries in 1821. Decades before he went down there, you can imagine how they were looking forward to his success. By the way, in the 1850s, that word filibuster meant pirate, buccaneer, and aggressive slaveholder. Walker was inspired and promoted by the Knights of the Golden Circle. Sounds like a great name, huh? Well, this was a secret society interested in annexing territories in Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean to be added to the United States as slave states in 1854. And that was the year that the Republican Party was formed, which then 6 years later, their candidate, Abraham Lincoln, was elected. You see these contrasts? Walker was executed in 1860, a hero among many Southerners. That was 1 year before the Civil War. And that was a conflict with two sides. Some would say that the angel and the devil were having a serious argument. It was actually more of a fist fight. And here is another slant to the whole strange tale. He, Walker, and his men were convinced of their vision, their plan, and they had a fan club in the southern slave states. I think they were totally bamboozled by the devil on one shoulder. But they had a whole story here. This is a belief system. The initials are BS. What a yarn. And I didn't hear about this story in high school, did you? Interesting, huh? So let's go back a little bit further in history on these American shores. The 1st of June, 1660, Mary Dyer, originally born in England and moved to the colonies, died a martyr. Mary was born in 1611 And she was a Puritan turned Quaker who was hanged in Boston, Massachusetts Bay Colony, for repeatedly defying a Puritan law banning Quakers from the colony. Who heard of that in high school? I didn't. This was due to their, now get this theological perspective. This was due to their theological expansion or perversion, depending upon who you asked, of the Puritan concept of a church of individuals regenerated by the Holy Spirit to the idea of the indwelling of the Spirit or the light of Christ, which was deemed dangerous heresy by the Puritans. Did you follow that? Okay, I didn't. Mary was one of 4 executed Quakers known as the Boston Martyrs. Quakers were executed by the Puritans. The heresy had to do with the Puritans believing that doing good works and following Scripture was the proper way. Are you detecting a belief system here? Mary believed, like her teachers, the more famous Anne Hutchinson and the Reverend Cotton, that there is grace and individuals can receive revelation. Quakers were free thinkers, and that was heresy. I have admired their spirit of conscientious objection for decades, and I remember their role in inspiring young men in the Vietnam War. By the way, has anyone been to a Quaker meeting? Okay, several, yeah. I've attended on a couple of different occasions, and so things are rather quiet, during the inspiration phase here, because people are awaiting the inspiration. And I remember, first being there, just like kind of quietly waiting. So time went by. I think I had an inspiration, but I didn't say anything. But back to Mary in the 1660s. It was noted that she was apparently educated from her surviving letters. Quaker chronicler George Bishop described her as a comely, grave woman, and of a goodly personage, and one of a good report, having a husband of an estate, fearing the Lord, and a mother of children. She must have been proud. The Dutch writer, Gerard Croce, wrote that she was reputed to be a person of no mean extract in parentage, of an estate pretty plentiful, of a comely stature and countenance, of a piercing knowledge in many things, of a wonderful, sweet, and pleasant discourse, so fit for great affairs. And when you think of that, and then you think about, and then she was martyred. The Massachusetts governor, John Winthrop, described her as being a very proper and fair woman, of a very proud spirit, and much addicted to revelations. Anyone here much addicted to revelations? Oh, I am. So look on your shoulders. Which is going to be talking to you at any particular time? Anyway, comely Mary was kicked out of the colony several times, but her conviction, her belief system, brought her back. She was jailed and supposed to be hanged but was spared at the last minute and banished. She left for a short while, but then she returned. And she would not repent, and she was hanged by the Puritans. I think at this point, we have gone beyond the little two voices on the shoulders. But get this, and this is the point, both groups, both sides believed they were right. And a righteous inspiration from their Lord told them to stay the course. But it was all too coarse, of course. Belief systems. This just in, born on June 1st, 1926, Andy Griffith, the actor, and Marilyn Monroe. I don't know what to do with that information. Died on the 1st of June, 1968, Helen Keller, American author and activist. And she was born in 1880. And I am in wonder that she was actually a contemporary and alive while President Johnson was president. Keller's father worked for many years as an editor of a newspaper in Alabama. He had served as a captain in the Confederate Army. There's that split war again. The family was part of a slave-holding elite before the American Civil War, but lost status later, although they still had money. Her mother was the daughter of Charles Adams, a Confederate general. Keller's paternal lineage was traced to Caspar Keller, a native of Switzerland. One of Helen's Swiss ancestors was the first teacher for the deaf in Zurich. Keller reflected on this fact in her first autobiography, asserting that there is no king who has not had a slave among his ancestors, and no slave who has not had a king among his. We may all know about the life of Helen Keller from maybe her books or maybe from the movies. There were several movies made about her life, and the more famous of them was called The Miracle Worker. And that was a term that her friend Mark Twain used to describe her governess and teacher, Anne Sullivan, and became her teacher and guide when young Helen was just 7 years old. And there was that famous scene of learning that there was a word for everything. Is a classic. Anne was struggling to communicate with the wild child. From young Helen's perspective, all was a dim and almost meaningless world, a fog of impressions. Can you imagine? It's almost like an internal prison. So one day, Anne had running water splashing on young Helen's hand and wrote out on the other palm the word water. Water. This fluid washing over my hand has a name, a word. Does everything have a name? She was excited. She ran around the room, touching things she knew of, but not their name. Anne signed their name. Everything had a name, a word, and so life started to make sense. She was inspired, awakened. That day, Kellen would forever remember as my soul's birthday. She wrote, I stood still. my whole attention fixed upon the motion of her fingers. Suddenly, I felt a misty consciousness as of something forgotten, a thrill of returning thought, and somehow the mystery of language was revealed to me. I knew then that W-A-T-E-R meant the wonderful, cool something that was flowing over my hand. The living word awakened my soul, gave it light, hope, set it free. Helen Keller then learned to talk, went on to graduate from college, wrote 19 books, and traveled around the world, inspiring many people. Her mind put the pieces of the puzzle together to the point that she later could see much clearer than many people with regular vision. She figured out cause and effect, action and reaction, rules and results, dualities and injustice. Keller wrote The World I Live in 1908, giving readers an insight into how she felt about the world. Out of the Dark, a series of essays on socialism, was published in 1913. She had gone beyond just understanding. Water and now injustice in society. She understood that she was privileged because her family had money, which was built on slavery. But millions of people were not so fortunate, and this was not due to their own failings. It was the system. She wrote, the few own the many because they possess the means of livelihood for all. The country is governed for the richest, for the corporations, the bankers, the land speculators, and for the exploiters of labor. The majority of mankind are working people, so long as their fare demands the ownership and control of their livelihoods are set at naught. We can have neither men's rights nor women's rights. The majority of mankind is ground down by industrial oppression in order that the small remnant may live in ease. 1911. Well, this is embarrassing. For this was a little bit too much for her fan club, especially the bankers and the politicians. When she was the wonder child, learning about life and meaning, she was an inspiration. A clever girl who figured out about life in its complexities and abundance. However, and was it the devil on her shoulder? When she ventured into women's rights, the NAACP, and helped found the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, she was, they reminded whoever would listen, a person with disabilities. Poor thing. She was suspect now, and even investigated by the FBI at one point. They would rather tell us again how you understood water. In the meantime, in her growth, Anne Sullivan introduced her to Christianity. And Helen Keller famously said, I always knew he was there, but I didn't know his name. Her spiritual biography, My Religion, was published in 1927, It advocates the teachings of Emanuel Swedenborg, the Christian theologian and mystic who gave a spiritual interpretation of the teachings of the Bible and who claimed the second coming of Jesus Christ had already taken place. Keller described the core of her beliefs in these words. But in Swedenborg's teaching, it, divine providence, is shown to be the government of God's love and wisdom and creation of uses. Since his life cannot be less in one being than another, or his love manifested less fully in one thing than another, his providence must needs be universal. He has provided religion of some kind everywhere, and it does not matter to what race or creed anyone belongs if he is faithful to his ideals of right living. I think that little angel on her shoulder was talking to her. So now we go back into the mythical land of San Francisco. A true story about 30 years ago involving me. And we were on the beach, and it's a nice, big, broad beach, and we were out jogging, me and two of my friends. And we were involved in a couple of different study groups. And so we thought that we could just spontaneously come up with this exercise connected with truth and trust. And so the guy in the middle, as we were running, would close his eyes. Then one of us would be the liar, and the other one would be the truth sayer, giving him directions. Got it? So here we are running, faster and faster, him trusting with his eyes closed. Here we are in San Francisco Beach running. And we made some quiet signals to each other, and the other fellow was going to be the liar, and I was going to be the doobie. And so there we were running along, and then he said, "Oh, move to the left, there's some rocks." I said, "No, it's okay, go straight." He, in the middle, was judging who's right, who's wrong, what's being said, who should I listen to. It was a fun experiment, and with a lesson. We hear voices, opinions, and at first we don't know the truth, hearsay, a con, delusion, politics. Oh, I'm repeating myself. And so, as you go out into society with different views, beliefs, emotions, each of you, must listen, discern, and follow your inspiring angel. Follow the truth. Don't follow the leader. Tune in and listen to your noble heart. Even if those around you want you to think like them, vote like them, stop and listen. Check your shoulders. When a voice sends you off the path and you stub your toe, then heed not that source. There are false voices selling BS. Know their tune, but sing it not. Follow the divine, the doobie. You can leave here today and proudly say, "I heard in church today that I should be a doobie." My eye is getting a bit moist. So, trust that inspiration, that noble light. By their deeds will you know them. Go forth and walk that good path. Blessings on your way.